So I think if I try to move right now, these are all going to fall over. I have 34 books here. 30 of them I bought this morning at a massive book sale held in an arena a couple towns over, and I spent $52. I've got Margaret Lawrence, I've got Margaret Atwood, I've got Alice Munro, I've got Hemingway, I've got F. Scott Fitzgerald, I have Steinbeck, I have some Ayn Rand, and lots of good stuff. I also have Cabernet Sauvignon because I didn't quite spend my entire budget, so naturally. So let's get started with this book haul. I think they're going to stay. They're staying. So I have stacked up my books beside me here because the stool I had them stacked on is where I prop my phone up to film. So I'm going to start with the books that I got in the mail this week. They were all pretty cheap. I'm trying to only buy used. So I got a copy of The Catcher in the Rye by J.D. Salinger because I have never read it and I feel like I'm constantly missing pop culture references. So peer pressure on that one. Then I bought something, this was new, that I've been meaning to read for a very long time. I've been eyeing it on Amazon and I keep passing it over, but it was only like $11 or $12. And this is The Educated Imagination by Canadian literary critic Northrop Frye. And this is part of the CBC Macy Lectures series. So I believe in this book he talks about what makes good literature. And then my copy of Nausea by Sartre came for me. I ordered this a couple weeks ago. I think it cost me like 49 cents plus shipping because I had heard from some comments left on my videos that this is quite a good book. And I'm trying to get into some Sartre, so I figured it's short, it's good, maybe that'll be a nice entrance for me to his fiction. And then this was a penny plus shipping, Alice Munro's Who Do You Think You Are? The story that I wanted to read in here is titled Half a Grapefruit, and I sat and read it yesterday after it arrived. Probably my favorite short story ever, and I really got a craving to read it a couple weeks ago, and I couldn't find it anywhere online, so I ordered this. Just a beat up paperback, but it gave me what I needed. So on to what I bought today. I'll start with the taller stack here. I found Little by Little, A Writer's Education by Jean Little. Jean Little is a children's author. I read a great deal of her novels when I was in middle school, and I read this book, I believe it's a biography or an autobiography of hers about her life when I was in middle school, and I saw it and it was $1 and I thought it might be kind of fun to reread it. I found a Margaret Lawrence novel, also for $1, A Bird in the House. I don't know anything about this specific novel. I read The Stone Angel, The Fire Dwellers, and A Jest of God by her. I have her novel, The Diviners, on my shelf. At this point, I'm trying to remember whether I've read that one or not. It's been a few years if I have, but A Bird in the House. This is about a girl growing up in Manitoba, a small town in Manitoba, bitter family conflicts, unyielding prairie traditions, depression, and thirst for freedom. Short little novel, should be a good read. I found some Alice Munro. This is The View from Castle Rock in a Modern Classics edition. These are a collection of short stories. I don't believe that I read any contained in here. I noticed there's an introduction by Elizabeth Hay. I read some of Elizabeth Hay's novels. This was kind of a last minute pick. I saw it, I passed over it, and then right before I left I went back to it. This is from Ink Lake, Canadian Stories, selected by Michael Ontagy, I think. Anyway, it's a collection of Canadian short stories, and I can see I'm kind of catching the glare from the window, but the lineup in here is quite impressive. We've got Alistair MacLeod, Gabriel Roy, Margaret Atwood, Ethel Wilson, Alice French, David Adams Richardson, Joyce Marshall, Mordecai Richler, Clark Blaze, Madeline Farron, Sheila Watson, Margaret Lawrence, Austin Clark, Stephen Leacock, Alice Munro, Carol Shields, and it goes on and on and on. So it's just an anthology of short stories by prominent Canadian authors. Oops. There goes the stack. Cup of Gold by John Steinbeck. I've read some Steinbeck in the past for, I think it was $1. Yeah, $1. I thought, why not? I'll try out this Steinbeck novel that I've never even heard of. I think on the back it says, this is his only historical novel. So I found this one, Meet Me in St. Louis by Sally Benson, and I didn't even know it was a novel. I remember watching the movie, the musical, as a teenager, and I saw the novel and thought it could be kind of good. I'll see how similar the movie and the book are. Then I have bought my first Mordecai Richler novel, The Imparable Atuic. Mordecai Richler is kind of a legendary Canadian author, from what I understand. This is about a man who leaves his igloo up north and moves to Toronto, and I guess it's kind of a culture shock experience. I'm assuming it's very humorous because I believe Mordecai Richler writes humorous novels. It does say it's a satire, so it's exactly what I thought it was. So, moving right along, I picked up Ayn Rand's Anthem. It's been a couple years since I read anything by Ayn Rand. I read The Fountainhead in high school. I attempted, what's her other big novel? I attempted Atlas Shrugged a couple summers back. Couldn't really get into it, but for $1, Anthem was one of the ones that I always wanted to read, so I will give it a try. I was happy to find this next one here. I found a copy of Memories of My Melancholy Horrors by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. I read this one already. I borrowed it from the library close to a year ago now, I think, and it was only $2.50, and it's a nice little hardcover edition of his novella. Probably my least favorite work that I've read by him, but it's still nice to have it in my collection, and the dust jacket is kind of gorgeous. I also ended up picking up a copy of As I Lay Dying by William Faulkner. This is one that a lot of my classmates had to read in their English classes during my undergrad. I never took a class where I had to read it, and I did attempt Sanctuary by William Faulkner with Conrad from The Deckled Edge with his book club last month, but I didn't get more than a few pages in. Actually, I think I still have it sitting here. Sanctuary, yeah, that was a failure. But I'm gonna try some Faulkner again. Maybe I'll try his most famous work and see if I can get into it, and if I can read this one, then I'll go back to Sanctuary and try that again. This was a fun find. I found a copy of Each Man's Son by Hugh MacLennan in one of the older New Canadian Library editions. I already have this book in a couple of formats, but I don't have this edition yet, and I can never have enough Hugh MacLennan editions. I actually passed up a hardcover first edition of The Precipice because it had no dust jacket, and I already have a first edition with a dust jacket. And I passed up an early edition of Hugh MacLean's Two Solitudes for the same reason, no dust jacket, and I already have a first edition of it with a dust jacket. And then I came across another work by Mordecai Richler, The Street, in this nice little, more modern New Canadian Library edition. If you're looking for Canadian literature, go for the New Canadian Library editions. These are the go-to. They're the Penguin paperbacks of the CanLit scene. Once again, I know nothing about this book. Something about refugees from Europe, unexpected sophistication, snobbery, St. Urbain Street in time, cigar and soda, phone booths, private calls, tips on sex from Duddy Kravitz. Maybe this will be the first one I read, kind of my introduction to Mordecai Richler. Always love trying CanLit authors that I haven't tried yet. Then I picked up a copy of Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy by Douglas Adams. Read this a couple years back, loved it. Hadn't bought myself a copy yet. Not the nicest copy, but for $1 I can't go wrong. I need to stop stacking the books up there or they're going to fall right on my lap. Then for $1 I also found Something I've Been Meaning to Tell You, 13 Stories by Alice Munro. It's a nice little vintage paperback, I guess. I'm trying to get into some more Alice Munro. I've read a little bit of her work. What I've read I really loved, but somehow I've never quite started reading the bulk of her work. This is the first book that I picked up when I got to the book sale this morning. The Donnellys Must Die, the true story of the brutal murders of James Donnelly and his family near Lucan, Ontario in 1879-80 by Orlo Miller. Laurentian Library number 4. Back in the day it would have cost $1.25 new. I paid $1 for it used. It's CanLit. It's CanLit that I've never heard of. And the back does sound quite intriguing. It says, a feud rooted in antique hatred began far away, a series of brutal assaults ending in the incredibly vicious murders of a father, wife, and 5 children, a trial of the known murderers by a jury afraid to convict them. These are the elements of Orlo Miller's sensational book about the Donnelly family. They lived in southwestern Ontario, heirs to a Catholic-Protestant feud originating in Ireland, and they were violent men, like their neighbours. The Black Donnellys have fascinated generations of Canadians, but this is the first authoritative account of their violent lives and deaths. Orlo Miller has based his work on contemporary newspapers, court records, and personal diaries. Cover art by Alan Daniel. I'm interested to see whether this one is any good, since I have never heard of it and I'm not sure whether it's been reprinted recently. This next one I picked up because I remember hearing a booktuber talk about it at some point. I believe they were a Canadian booktuber. Right now I can't remember exactly who it was, but I remember at the time the title sounded intriguing, the author sounded intriguing. So this is By Grand Central Station, I Sat Down and Wept, a novel by Elizabeth Smart. It's a love story, takes place in the United States, New York specifically. The back doesn't tell you much about it, but I guess I'll find out whether it's any good. Gabrielle Roy, one of my favorite Canadian authors. This is Where Nests the Water Hen. Never read it. Nice New Canadian Library edition, deep blue, very nice. Looking forward to reading some more Gabrielle Roy. I found the journals of Sylvia Plath. I haven't read much by Sylvia Plath, apart from The Bell Jar. Never read her poetry, never read her journals. So this will be a nice introduction to a little bit more about her. Also found Gabrielle Roy's The Cashier in a New Canadian Library edition. I read this 4 or 5 years back, borrowed it from the library. Nice to own my own copy of it. It's about a bank teller in Montreal, feeling trapped, wants to transcend circumstance and fate, and it is set in the 1940s. Then I found John Steinbeck's The Red Pony. Now, this is a Macmillan hardback. These books, I believe, were created specifically for high schools. This is the kind of edition that I originally read Two Solitudes in. So it was a blue Macmillan hardcover like this, hard boards, same kind of title plate, same or very similar pattern, dark blue, only when I read Two Solitudes for the first time, I quickly discovered that it was abridged, so I'm hoping The Red Pony by John Steinbeck is not abridged. As I said earlier, I'm looking forward to reading some more Steinbeck because I found that I really liked what I've read by him so far. This was another last minute pickup. I passed it over, came back to it, as I did with the previous collection. I'm trying to see what the title is now, from Ink Lake. This is Modern Canadian Stories. This one was published in the 1970s, so it's a little bit older, but once again, it's just an anthology of short stories by Canadian authors. So we have Mordecai Richler, Hugh Hood, Alice Munro, John Metcalf, Daphne Buckle, Irving Layton, Alden Nolan, George Bowring, Hugh McLennan. It looks like his story is called An Orange from Portugal. I believe I've read that at some point. We have Sinclair Ross, Ernest Buckler, Malcolm Lowry, Hugh Garner, Brian Moore, Margaret Lawrence, Henry Kreisel, Adele Wiseman, Earl Burney, never heard of him. Oh, that's the foreword. That could be why. George Romanelli, Duncan Campbell Scott, The Asshole, Stephen Leacock, Frederick Philip Grove, Maison de la Roche, Ethel Wilson, Morley Callaghan. I probably won't read this all in one sitting. I might dive into it from time to time, as I will with the other anthology, just when I'm in the mood for a short story. Then I found this kind of battered hardcover of F. Scott Fitzgerald's Tender is the Night. I kind of hate The Great Gatsby. Maybe you'll like this. I thought I'd try something more from him before I condemn the author entirely. Then this is kind of fun. It appears to be a large print edition, or at least just an extremely large paperback version of Hugh McLennan's Voices in Time. Cover on this one is quite dramatic. This book takes place in the year 2030. An old man is remembering the 1970s and the 1980s. McLennan takes us back to really one of the definitive points in his writing career, I think, the 1970s, the 1970 October crisis, and McLennan really saw civilization going downhill, and this was his kind of dystopian future. Then I have one that I bought mostly for the boards and for the beautiful plates that were obviously used to print it, but this is from 1888. And so we have this, they look like violets, this beautiful violet pattern, purpley and kind of beige and green. And then there's the cloth binding gold flowers, possibly more violets. It's hard to tell. Spine is faded, but it's a very heavy book. I paid $5 for this one. There is a little bit of water damage, but that doesn't bother me too much. Some beautiful illustrations in here. This is Lalarook by Thomas More, an Oriental romance. New York, 46 East 14th Street, Thomas Y. Crowell and Company. Boston, 100 Purchase Street. And every last page has this border, this greenish border around the outside. Actually, it's brown on most of the pages. I think it's just chapter titles. Or, that's odd. It's brown on most of the pages, but then every few pages it's green, and there doesn't seem to be any rhyme or reason for it. It's a mix of brown and green. No specific pattern, but so every last page has this border, and so I suppose they would have used plates. It would have been a two-step printing process. Norwood Press, Berwick and Smith, Boston, USA. It's just a really beautiful book. I know nothing about this work, and at this point I'm not sure whether I'll read it or not, but I was just really taken with the boards on this book. Then I grabbed one that I had never heard of, Blackout by Hubert Aquin, translated by Alan Brown. Don't know the title, don't know the author, but it does say that it's a novel by a leading Quebec writer, and I'm down for some translated French-Canadian lit. Actually, I'm down for translated lit of any kind, but especially French-Canadian lit. Unfortunately, the back doesn't really tell me too much about the book itself. It talks mainly about the translator and about a literature award that the book won. But the title itself is kind of intriguing. I had to pay $2 for it. Interestingly enough, it's printed by a publisher I actually know, Anansi, in Toronto, 1974. I found another work by Gabriel Garcia Marquez. This one I have not read. This is Innocent Erundira. And once again, I probably butchered that name, but this is one that has been on my to-buy list, and this is, it's a decent copy. I paid $2.50 for it. Serves its purpose. I'll get to read it. 1979 printing. I was going to guess the 70s based on that colorful cover. Then I found a Scribner Library copy of The Sun Also Rises by Ernest Hemingway. I own this in another edition, but there are certain authors where if I see an edition I really like, I will pick it up and have 2 copies on my shelf. Or in the case of Hugh McLennan, I will have 4 or 5 copies on my shelf. Then I found this. Unfortunately, it looks like someone's been using it as a coaster. There's rings or something on there, but this is Frenzied Fiction by Canadian author Stephen Leacock. Nice little hardcover. $19.17. The only thing I read by this author is Bits and Pieces of Sunshine Sketches. That I believe is his most famous work, and someone's done terrible things to the boards on this book. But yes. And then I come to The Danger of Being a Gentleman by Harold Lasky. Once again, never read anything by this author. Recognize the name though. He was a professor of political science in London. Yeah, in London, I was remembering correctly. Never read anything by him. Published in 1939. I do believe this is nonfiction. This is a collection of essays on everything from the judicial function to law and justice in Soviet Russia, study of politics. The title essay, The Danger of Being a Gentleman, the English Constitution and French Opinion. That one sounds pretty dry, but I might read it anyway. I'll probably pick bits and pieces, pick the essays that I want to read out of this one, and ignore the ones that sound dry as hell. And I'm down to my last book. This is Island Beneath the Sea by Isabel Allende, or Allende. Well, I always butcher her name, but I've been enjoying some of her novels over the past year, and I believe this is about a woman born as a slave. This was $3. I probably won't get to it right away since I still have another novel by her sitting on my shelf that I haven't read yet. But yeah, so those are the books that I got today. I hope you enjoyed seeing what I found. I've got some reading to do. I've got some shelf rearranging to do. I don't know where the hell I'm going to put all these, but thanks for watching. Hope everyone is having a good Saturday.